Hello everyone. So our last session, we're really diving into emotional weaponization, but in particular, it was about how to disarm emotional weapons being projected at us. And so earlier on, we've spoken about these themes of having castles and walls around our heart, an inability to tap back into that space of love, of warmth. And we spoke about the importance of becoming vulnerable again, to let those walls down if we were to want to deepen our relationship to ourselves or our relationships to others. But the issue, the kind of catch-22 that we're all facing is, if I let myself get vulnerable here, I'm potentially opening myself up to attack and hurt. So we began diving into the concepts of, okay, how do we disarm emotional weapons being thrown at us? And I likened it to sort of self-empowerment through what I was calling emotional martial arts. And in the martial arts world, we spoke about how we become empowered by learning how to throw punches and block and kick and move in a really graceful way, that we see our opponents not as an enemy, but as more like a dance partner. And so we started to go into the different stages of what it meant for me to become a master of self-defense, emotional self-defense, that allows our walls to be down, yet empowers us to be able to set boundaries for ourselves when we're being hurt, that empowers us to speak up when we're feeling shamed, or when someone's projecting fear to us, or when someone is disgusted by us and trying to isolate us from a group, or from our friends, or from our families. And so right now we're up to section 2, which is stage 2. It involves, let me go through stage 1 again. Stage 1 was just simply being able to mentally identify emotions as they arise. So being able to say, these are the primary emotions, these are the 7 primary emotions. We haven't delved into the feeling yet. So stage 2 involves sort of like 4 stages that I would say. The first one is being able to have a depth of feeling, right? And last week we sort of began diving into this depth of feeling ability. The second part to this is being able to recognize body language. So body language when we're feeling a certain emotion. So I know a lot of emotional intelligence and this circle always put a great deal of emphasis on body language. But for me, it is just one part of what being emotionally intelligent and emotionally intimate means. And so we will go deeply into each of the emotions and describe and feel out what each person looks like and how they're moving when they have, for instance, trapped fear, trapped anger, trapped shame, trapped disgust, trapped sadness. Right? That's the second part of stage 2. The third part of stage 2 is what I call like releasing and stretching. And if you think about a physical martial artist, one who's not the macho martial artist, one who is the martial artist who has a great deal of intimacy with life, with himself, and is heart-centered. What I mean by releasing and stretching, in martial arts, in the practice, you sort of do the splits. You practice going into the splits, you practice mobility, you do active stretching. right? And so in emotional martial arts, it's sort of exactly the same thing. What we're trying to do here is broaden our breadth and our spectrum of being able to feel anger, of being able to feel grief and sadness, of being able to feel fear, of being able to feel shame, of being able to feel disgust. That we almost become, that it's like we're able to tap into that at any moment and feel it at any moment. It becomes our choice. And in doing that, we broaden out our spectrum. It's not that we will be angry all the time, or be feeling shamed all the time, or be feeling scared all the time. No, it's about broadening out that spectrum. So we'll go through some release and stretch exercises. And like a demo would be, a demo of this would be, for instance, like let's say anger. Right now, I might have, say, let's use a scale of 100. I might just be, let's say, at 5 or 4, because I'm doing a talk to you guys. I'm making my voice heard. If I had no anger, I'd be speaking like this, and my shoulders might be slumped, and I might just be like this. But no, I'm speaking like this, which has a little bit of anger. It's what I call fire or anger. Whereas I might be, and there's like a tremendous level of anger that comes out, right? And it's being able to navigate all of that space between the 0 to 100, everything in between, with heart, ultimately. And it's the same thing with fear, the same thing with shame, same thing with disgust. And in doing this, we change our intimacy and our relationship to each of these emotions. And just like throwing a punch or doing a block, it's not on, off. On, off. It's not punch, as in no punch, fully punched. There's a range of motion that's in between there. That's what we're expanding. And then the fourth part, the last part to this, is how do we bring empathy into this dance? How do we bring an expression of and a feeling of all of these emotions back into our heart center? How do we do this? So let's talk about anger first, the feeling of it. Okay. This is a struggle for a lot of people, and so it's completely okay to not want to get into this, because it can be very unpleasant, and because anger has been shamed a lot, we're scared of it. It's been used violently at some times and aggressively towards us, abusively. This is an exercise just about feeling. And I want you just to remember a moment, if you can, of rage. Perhaps it was this week. Perhaps it's been a very, very long time ago. And see if you can remember that feeling. Feel how, if you can, it rises in your body. It's this agitation. It almost contains like this call of action. We want to express it outwardly, really much so. And if you expressed that rage in that moment physically, just remember how you felt during it and how you felt after it. There may even have been quite a sense of relief after that moment of that outburst or that anger. Like, something was just released. And just come back to a moment now, a different moment, perhaps where you have trapped anger, where you haven't expressed it, where you've tried your hardest to not say something. You've wanted, it's been on the tip of your tongue, and you've just been debating whether you want to feel it or not. And just feel your body in that moment. It's a bit sticky. It's like a stagnation. There's agitation that wants to rise up, but there's resistance. There's stubbornness. And now I want you just to imagine meeting someone, not yourself, someone else, who you sense has a lot of trapped anger. What does their body look like? What does their movement look like? What are their behaviors like? And just slowly open your eyes. If anyone wants to share something, you're welcome to.
There is a noticeable difference, Chris, whenever, for instance, for me, having worked on those particular emotions, um, I'm able to see what other people that are holding anger, for instance, are physically showing the signs of. For instance, a lot of aches and pains. There's dis-ease in the body, which is showing up. Either the weight, there's a huge difference in weight, whether it's overweight or underweight. And I kind of, I kind of look at that. And then I can also, when the anger is bubbling up and I'm observing it, I see there's agitation and there's some fidgeting going on because the person doesn't want to let it out because they're embarrassed.
Yep. Yep. Spot on. That's exactly what I see also.
Yeah.
Okay. There's another part to this that I also sometimes I say, it's like, for men, it's like we've lost our balls. I sometimes see it in the supermarket a lot, where the husband or partner is sort of walking down the aisles following their partner, and it's almost as though they look like they have a tail between their legs. It's like this sort of inward knee facing, shoulders are kind of slumped, head slumped, and like walking with a tail between their legs. When we express this, which is our next exercise, we'll feel how differently that feels. So let's go into our next exercise.
Can I just make one comment about that?
Yeah.
Tail between the legs.
Yeah.
Both are equally responsible, and this is where you can see where the yin and the yang, the male, the female. So the female takes more of the male over.
Yeah, exactly.
And talk about disempowering one another.
Yes. Yes. Without realizing it. Yeah.
And you see it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't
Because
know
there
what to
has to
do.
be that equal balance, right?
Right. Right.
And when that equal balance isn't existing, what's going to happen is if the man isn't manning up enough, then the woman's going to man up enough.
Exactly right. Right. Who holds the balls in the house? Yeah, exactly. So here are some exercises to help us tap back into this fire, into this anger. Okay. We're going to start off with very gentle exercises. The first exercise is what I call dragon's breath. And it involves us making really ugly guttural sounds. And we have our tongue out. We can clench our fists if we need to. And what we're just doing is tongues out like this. And we're doing this. And we're squeezing in through our gut and taking a deep breath and holding our gut if we need to. And going. And then after the exercise, feel your body opening up. Feel it open up. Feel that energy moving through you. And taking that energy back to the heart. This is the important part. It's not just about doing the release, but taking the energy back to the heart. My favorite exercise for this, because simply it's the fastest, is to do the kulike. It's a Hawaiian practice that we put our right hand on our heart and our left hand on our gut. And just take and breathe in that energy back into our heart. And we can do this exercise again with a little bit more intensity, tongue out. And letting the body open up after that and feeling it through the heart. Moving the body however you feel like it needs to. Letting, if there's tingles, let the tingles go through your body. Now the transition from that piece of work into action, into saying something, is the next piece. Where we want to do this next piece is often where we want to set a boundary for ourselves. Where we want to just say, stop. And so what we want to do is we go from the dragon's breath, stop. So remembering that feeling of that fire all coming through the body, transitioning into movement of a stop. So let's do that. Taking a deep breath in. Stop. Heart feeling it. And feeling how intensely you are able to bring that energy into a stop. And just noticing any resistance, any resistance and stubbornness that perhaps you didn't like the ugliness of your own voice. Perhaps you're able to do the but not transition it into the full movement. Just staying with that and bringing that resistance, if you like, into your heart right now. It's okay that we are all where we are at. It's safe to bring anger into my heart. Okay. So that's an exercise that we can turn into a really big exercise that a lot of psychotherapists call a conscious rant. And it's a deliberate release of anger that is trapped in our body. And it is most effective when we are doing it in the 3 parts of expression: the voice, shouting; the mind, contemplating; and action, through our movement. So, for instance, a conscious rant might look like this. You take a pillow and you scream into it, and you hold it really tight, and you might stomp your feet, and you might want to shake the pillow. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to release all of this trapped anger, from our body. That's one way of doing it. A second way of doing it is through body work and partner work, is wrestling, safe wrestling, where you might be, this is a really healthy thing to do, I think. You might be with a friend or with a partner, and you can just rest your shoulders against each other, one against the other, get on all fours, put your tongue out, and just and push against each other. And you'll notice sometimes, like, you think, oh, I just had a really big argument with my lover and we had makeup sex, and it was the most incredible makeup sex ever. Why? A lot of the time it's this fire and this anger that we're releasing through sexual energy. We can do very much the same thing without having sex, just having a physical wrestling. We just get it all out there. And when that's out, what we find is when we enter back into a conversation, if we've just had a fight with our partners, and especially if we can bring it to the heart and bring all that energy to the heart, the conversations just happen so fluidly. We find so much more receptiveness to hearing what is being said and to sharing whatever you feel like sharing, honestly. Right. Any questions on this? Then, as part of the release and stretch work, is an element of discernment as to whether the anger that we're feeling is unhealthy or healthy. What do I mean by that? Unhealthy would potentially look like we've got anger in loop. So we're like constantly angry at this and at that and at this and at that. Is expressing of anger, of that anger, a healthy or unhealthy thing? We have to begin to learn to really exercise discernment around unhealthy and healthy, because for me I find that there's almost two courses of action, but depending on whether it's unhealthy or healthy. What do I mean by that? If, for instance, it was healthy anger, like someone has hurt you, they've abused you, and you're angry. For that purpose, for me, it's actually not so much about doing the releasing of the anger through a conscious rant. It's about sinking into the anger, becoming intimate with the anger, and using it to take action and set the boundary. Because there's a call to action in healthy anger. It's saying, okay, I need to take this and I need to do something with it that is about boundaries, boundary setting generally. If it's unhealthy and we're sort of in this old loop of the same thing happening over and over again, then what I find in those moments is doing a conscious rant actually does help. Because what we're trying to do is, instead of hurting people over and over again with our loop, we are doing it to a pillow, which is safe. And we're getting all of that built up anger out and finding, hopefully, a space to come back to the heart to eventually take it to the core. So we're in a safe space. Now we can come back and go, where does this anger come from? What part of my childhood or my trauma or my conditioning and my upbringing did this arise? And we're processing it for ourselves, sitting with ourselves, comfortably, safely, with a pillow. No one can hear us. It's just safe. We're protected. We feel free of judgment, free of shame. Nobody cares but us. And we're just sitting with it. For me, that feels like a really comfortable, safe, transformational space, a space that holds a great deal of potential for transformation. So yes, two parts to discernment that I would say: healthy, unhealthy. Then the last part of that exercise was empathy, the importance of bringing ourselves back to acceptance and welcoming of all the emotion that is rising up, and bringing that back to the heart. And some would say, and I kind of agree, that I could have just not done this whole emotional intimacy session. We could just have not done it and said, you know what, everyone? The most important thing is to be in your heart. That's all that matters. All that matters. Don't worry about anything else, just be in your heart. And for me, that still rings true as an overall theme. All I'm trying to bring back as concepts here is it's very difficult to, it was at least very difficult for me to be in this sort of heart-centered space all the time. And when an emotion like anger was rising for me, or rage, how do I combine that? How do I combine the two together? Do I just run off and meditate again? Do I do some more medicine, like plant medicine? What do I do? And so I found for myself that I needed a bridge. I needed to understand mentally, because it's a lot of mental chatter that goes on and gut that goes on, right? When we're experiencing these emotions that we find unpleasant, to just mentally understand them. So I can, I've got it. I get what's going on here. And what I'm doing is I'm changing my mindset. And as I'm changing my mindset, I'm forming a different relationship to the emotion, to anger, to fear, whatever that may be. Then I find it easier to bring back to my heart. Any questions on anger and those exercises?
I think you've got to really, or I feel, encouraged, because this is, I think, a very important part of the process. My experience is the same. Just stay in the heart. Follow your bliss. Connect to your source and stay grounded and so on. And in that process, there was almost a dismissal of these other parts of me that were frustrated, irritable, angry, unhappy, sad, all those things. And the spiritual work I found in earlier years, or at least from in my journey from like 2009 probably to about 2017, was kind of all about that it's stay in the heart and everything, like just return to the heart, that's all it is. But, that we're in a pursuit here of wholeness, not of happiness, and wholeness includes these very important parts of anger. And I don't see it being explained as articulately or as beautifully as you're putting it across. And I think there's a lot of scope and a lot of training programs for there to be a section on how to digest and eliminate these big energies.
Right. Yeah, really well
I
said.
think it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see. I mean, how like in the corporate realm, how empowering that would be from a leadership and other perspectives. Absolutely, yeah.
And with that, I'd just say the leadership training element that's missing is the leader's ability to be able to hold the space for another to express their anger.
Right.
That's really something that has to feature in the leadership training, is how do these leaders hold the space for somebody to go through a process of expressing anger in a safe and healthy way, as opposed to being like, go and do that over there in your own time and then come back into this very formal setting when you've done your work outside that door over there, And people
Right.
are like, well, I don't know how to,
Right.
something's missing.
Exactly, and it's in corporate change is change, and there's a lot of redundancies and organizational structure change and all of this that we're emotional about it, right? But we fail to recognize this, and we don't want people to express all their anger. We're just like, okay, you go off on your own and process this by yourself. I think it's very unhealthy. Yeah. But we know no different. Okay. The next one is happiness. Happiness is probably one of my favorites, but it should generally be the fastest one to get through. Close your eyes and remember a really happy moment. And just feel your body. It's bubbly, it's free, you want to smile, you might want to jump up and down a bit. If it's trapped in the body, what happens? The person looks overly bubbly. So think about whether you know someone who's really, really bubbly, like so much so that you're just like, oh, I can only be with this person for X amount of time because they're just too bubbly. That's trapped happiness. Right? And again, when we free ourselves of this, the body just lightens and we become more neutral. Now, the release and stretch exercise for happiness. I know Mantak Chia really loves this one. It's a laughing exercise, and it's actually really good for the lymphatic system. It's actually really healthy. We say, laughing is a really healthy exercise for us. So all we're doing is laugh. And at first it might feel a bit funny, like you're like, what am I doing? This feels a bit bizarre. But it starts to become really natural after some time. Like and you can do an extra exercise, which is tapping all of the bones in your body that contain bone marrow that produce white blood cells. And it's bringing this laughter energy, this lightness, into healing ourselves. It's tapping the hip, which has a lot of bone marrow. It has probably the greatest amount of bone marrow, and the femur, which is the upper thighs. Right, tapping the back, tapping the sternum, and just and And tapping the chest, the belly, and just bringing that to the heart, feeling that. Oh, feel the body lighten. It's hard not to bring happiness to the heart, especially when it's genuine. Imagine if we did this exercise before any conversation, any deep dive meeting. It'd be fantastic. Any questions on that? Okay, the next primary emotion is fear. This is another probably disliked one by a lot of people, myself included. Just close your eyes and imagine yourself facing a scary situation. It might be heights. It might be being at the top of a skyscraper and looking downwards. It might be being locked in an elevator. It might be being drowned. It might be some kind of death. And just really feel how your body feels right now. Feeling the gut seize up. Perhaps you're looking at a situation where you really need to be on your best game and be really high performance. You might feel the butterflies in your stomach. It's very guttural. And just in your imagination, remember, look around the people who you interact with a lot. Or perhaps walk down the street and look at how fear might become trapped in their bodies. Just observe. And then just imagine that it's now lifting off the shoulders. They're releasing the fear. They're coming out of that state. You're coming out of that state. And just feel your body now. It kind of lightens. It's like a burden comes off your shoulders. Your gut softens. There's a sense of relief. Okay. Now, the body work, the release exercise for fear, in particular, where it is trapped or unhealthy fear, what tends to happen for us is in really fearful situations, we become nauseous. And it's as though we want to vomit. We want to throw it up. And for those of us who have done plant journeys, ayahuasca and different plants, we'll have purge buckets next to us, right? And you're like, okay, we know that we're going to vomit out something almost. It's anticipated. Why? Why this action? Because vomiting is a body, and pooing and peeing, that sensation of what we sometimes would remember as children also. when we're scared and we pee our pants, we're scared and we do a little poo. This is our body's natural reaction when it comes to fear, because we want to release it. It doesn't want to be trapped in our bodies, right? But over time, we develop this need to have to trap it. It becomes trapped in our body. So the action is to go through a motion of just rubbing from our gut upwards, maybe even lower, maybe even from the genitals upwards, and just making this motion of throwing up without. So notice how there's a tongue there as well. And just brushing upwards. And if your computer's not in danger of being puked on, you can put your fingers down your throat too. You can and put your finger into your throat and actually let it all come out. Right? We as a society have become really scared of vomiting, but it is a very natural bodily response when it comes to releasing trapped fear. And what we generally find happens is as we begin to do these exercises, or we begin to release this fear, if we have any intestinal gut issues like constipation, Crohn's disease, other, candida, etc., we actually find that with the gut softening, it helps us, it supports us in that space if we have disease. And one thing I really highly suggest to a lot of people is having body work done. What do I mean by that? Is getting a really deep tissue massage, but like a deep organ massage. And there are specific techniques, like it's called Qine Sang, where people get into each of the organs, where you're going into the organ and you're massaging the liver, you're massaging the stomach, you're getting into the intestines. And for a lot of people, just the gentlest of pushes into the gut is painful, right? And so what you can do in those bodywork exercises is, as you're pressing down on those organs, to do that motion as well. Not just to have the bodywork done, but to also do part of it for yourself. So I recommend those where, especially in your discernment, you're finding that this is unhealthy fear that I'm coming across here. These are worries that I really shouldn't be worried about this. Where it's healthy, on the other hand, so we're facing a situation and it's like, okay, we're on a cliff and we're looking down and it's a big drop and we're feeling scared. That's a healthy fear. What to do with that is not to release it through nauseousness. It's actually to get intimate with it, to go really, really deeply into that fear. And fear itself has an intelligence that sits within it. The gut has an intelligence. It wants to say something. What it generally wants to say is, take action on this to make yourself safe. Because fear, as if I had two words for it to say what is fear, it's I'm unsafe. And so the action, the healthy part, the healthy behavior towards that is to say, what is this fear telling me? What do I need to learn from this? And what do I need to take action so that I continue to be safe? Right. And after doing those releases, the last part is to make sure we bring empathy to it. We bring all of that fear back to the heart. Don't forget this last part. Do the fear release. Do it. Bring it and feel it. Any questions or comments?
For me, it was very confirming, because when I used to be younger and I had like exams for school, I always felt very sick. And when the nerves started getting higher, and I was like an hour before the exam, I was like also like having the feeling of throwing up.
Yep.
But now I know the fear more. I can go into it and connect it with my heart, and like know I will be safe.
Yeah.
So now I don't have it anymore. But I used to have a lot of these throw up feelings just because I was so fearful of taking it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I would encourage anybody who remembers those types of experiences to return back to their childhood, closing their eyes, going back to their childhood, imagining it, reliving that moment, and just allowing ourselves to vomit, to do the motion, as though our adult is protecting and looking after our child. So I'm here, Chris, now, and I'm going to go back to that moment of Chris when he's age 5. And although nobody was there to help guide him through that space of fear, of intense fear, me, the adult Chris, is now here to help that child, me, also become intimate with that fear and bring that fear to my heart. That is, for me, true self-love. It is an exercise where our adult version is loving our child. And these core wounds, these wounds that kind of shape the rest of our lives, can be healed so quickly in these moments. Just like that. 5 minutes. I've experienced so much for myself and with clients also. Washed away. This is real empowerment, right? Because you don't need me or anybody else to do these exercises. Only you can. And so you use the tool. Whenever something comes up for you and it's about fear, you go into it and you love the child who's coming up. With the kulike.
So Chris,
yeah.
Are you actually saying we should vomit? Like put our finger down our throat and actually vomit?
Yes, it's a release
or just
exercise.
Pretend to vomit.
I would suggest doing the whole. I would suggest, yeah, because that's the catharsis. So, okay. We talk about catharsis for a lot, about a full body release of an emotion. And when it comes to anger, for instance, like we get really, really angry, rageful, and we might go into grief and we might be sobbing, we might be stomping our feet. That it's for fear, the catharsis is the actual an actual purge. That is the catharsis. So we really do want to, if we haven't done this before, to put the finger down the throat or something down the throat to encourage that action. And then bringing the love to it. I mean, it's literally recreating something like an ayahuasca journey in the purging sense, where you're like, you don't have to be on ayahuasca. You're just recreating that process.
I see.
Right? And the aya kind of does a lot of that for you. It keeps you in your heart, so you're accepting it. You're with a circle of people potentially where you're experiencing this and everyone else is doing the same. So it becomes normalized. And when it's normalized, it feels accepted and embraced. It's like, oh, this is normal. right?
Yeah.
But it should be normal in real life too. But we have, as children, like all of these, should do's and ought to's about, oh, you shouldn't be so scared about your exam, blah, 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 blah. If you are, like that's not good or whatever. However, it was sort of pushed to the side for us. Or even where sometimes even I catch myself saying, it's okay, it's okay. The child isn't necessarily feeling like it's okay. Just you telling them it's okay or be calm down. Like, it's not necessarily helpful as a child. At least it wasn't to me as a child from my memory. Because I'm feeling this, and here you are sort of disrespecting or not acknowledging that I'm really scared. And I don't know what to do. I'm totally scared, and you are not listening to me. You're not hearing me. Right?
Here's my question. So I was on the airplane, and it was very violent, and this kid vomited all over me, and I hate the smell of vomit.
Yep.
And I just almost vomited too. So does that mean I have a lot of trapped fear, or disgust, or like what? I actually wanted to see you laugh, but that's a true story. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe ask someone to vomit on you, and and just see, like, just feel into whether what the disgust is that comes up about that vomit. Yeah. Because the thing is, we're also taught to be disgusted by the smell of vomit. Like, I look at my 6-month-old. It's not like she's vomiting, but she's not really disgusted by very much. Where it's generally, actually, if we vomit as children, as parents, like being a parent myself, it's like there's a sense of fear. Oh my goodness, like what's happening? There might be, oh, like what a smell. We do that with poo or wee, of our kids, and there might be a sense of shame, especially if it's in public that our child's doing this, or with our parents, because we want to be seen as really amazing parents. Look at how amazing I am as a parent compared to how you were to me. Oh my goodness, my child just threw up on your lap, like, and all of a sudden that's all just broken, right? And so it could be all a myriad of different things. And yeah, I would encourage you also just to get intimate with that smell, that with the process, because it is a very critical part to opening up the spectrum of being able to feel fear. It's at the upper end of the spectrum, right? It's when you have really high intense fear that is only then that you'll throw up. I mean, you might see it on the battlefield, right? It's often shown, people come into a stage of really being scared and they're just throwing up on the battlefield. Or you watch someone die, or something severe happens, and you're throwing up. Or you see some people throw up at the sight of blood. It's like there is such a tremendous amount of fear that comes up. It's a natural 100% fear coming through. And we have to be open to that. That's a form of emotional martial arts. Yeah. We haven't covered all the primary emotions, but that's okay. We'll keep doing them. Does anyone have any last questions around this? Nope. Okay. As always, if you have questions, comments, send them through email. It's good to see you all again, and hopefully we'll see you next week. All right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Enjoy.